Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into history's oldest cold case. You think you know the story of Cain and Abel, right? Well, what if the Bible's first murder was actually history's first hostile corporate takeover?
Okay, let's just dive right into this theory. What if the story of Cain and Abel isn't really about two brothers feuding in a field? What if it's the blueprint, meticulously recorded, of a massive prehistoric conspiracy, a coordinated international attack that literally laid the foundation for civilization as we know it?
So to really understand this takeover, we need to get to know the key players in this ancient corporate drama. The names might sound familiar, but trust me, their real roles are going to surprise you.
All right, so on one side, we've got Abel. Now, he represents this peaceful, incredibly advanced civilization called the Vinci culture from old Europe. And on the other side, we have Cain, who stands for the ruthless, top-down, emerging city-states of ancient Sumer over in Mesopotamia. Let's take a look at the profile of our target company. We'll call them Vinci Incorporated. I mean, think of them as this brilliant, innovative startup living in Europe's own Garden of Eden. They were the first to smelt copper, they created a symbolic language for spiritual rituals, but, and this is crucial, they were totally egalitarian. No kings, no armies. So they were rich, they were advanced, and they were completely defenseless. A perfect target.
Right. A culture this valuable doesn't just, vanish. It gets taken over. And this wasn't some random raid. This was a sophisticated, two-front clandestine operation, a full-blown conspiracy between powers in ancient Russia and Iraq to completely liquidate the competition.
And the timeline really reveals how this whole corporate espionage plot played out. It all started with infiltration. For centuries, you have these nomads from the northern steppes, modern-day Russia and Ukraine, showing up pretending to be traitors. In reality, they were spies. They were on a recon mission, mapping resources, learning the culture, and identifying the Vinci's biggest vulnerability, their total lack of defense. And once they had that intel, a full-scale invasion force just swept in and burned the Vinci world to the ground. This, of course, creates a massive refugee crisis. The survivors, the intellectual capital of the Vinci, we're talking their scientists, their engineers, their scribes, they all flee south. But they run straight into the arms of the second conspirator, those rising warlords in Sumer, ancient Iraq. It was like an ancient Operation Paperclip. The Proto-Sumerians captured this brain trust and put them to work, forcing them to build a new empire powered entirely by stolen technology. And this is where the story gets really chilling. See, the conquerors didn't just take the land, they took the Vinci's very soul. They stole their intellectual property, their source code, and they systematically turned it into a weapon of control. The first clue is just embedded right there in their language. The Sumerian cuneiform sign for a female slave, gime, is actually made of two other signs put together. It literally means woman from the mountains. Well, guess where the Vinci lived? In the Carpathian mountain region. The Sumerians weren't being poetic here, they were being descriptive. Their entire slave class was built from captured Vinci people.
The second piece of evidence is this incredibly ugly, mass-produced clay bowl. I mean, archaeologists have found tens of thousands of them. This was not a family dish. It was a tool. This bowl, believe it or not, was the world's very first time card, the original punch clock.
And this little bowl just perfectly illustrates the whole new system. The Vinci had created a symbolic script for sacred rituals, right? For connecting with the divine. The Sumerians took that basic idea of recording information, stripped it of all its spiritual meaning, and turned it into an accounting system to manage their new slave economy. You work a shift, you get a bowl, you get your ration for the day. That's it. The sacred was turned into a spreadsheet.
So what you're seeing here is this great reversal. Every single pillar of the Vinci culture was systematically inverted, turned on its head. Sacred writing became debt ledgers. Copper that was once used for art and jewelry was reforged into bronze for swords and armor. Communal voluntary work became forced shift work for rations. And generative mother goddesses were replaced by authoritarian male sky gods. Abel's entire world was turned upside down just to build Cain's.
Now, the Bible then gives us this genealogy for Cain, but if you look at it through this lens, it's not a family tree. Not at all. It's the corporate org chart for this new global entity we can call Civilization Incorporated.
And check it out. Cain, representing the new Sumerian priesthood. He's the CEO. His son Enoch isn't a person. He's the Department of Urban Planning, building the city grid to control the workforce. Lamech, he's the military-industrial complex, the muscle, and his kids head up all the key divisions. You got Jabal running ag tech to feed the machine, Jubal's in charge of propaganda, using music to pacify everyone, And Tubal-Cain is head of weapons R&D, turning that beautiful Vinci metallurgy into a force for domination.
But what if some of that original code, the spirit of Abel, actually survived the purge? Well, the story then introduces a third brother, Seth. He's not just a replacement for Abel. He represents the underground resistance.
So if Cain's lineage built the hardware of this new slave state, the cities, the weapons, the whole control grid, then Seth's lineage was the off-site backup. They represent this underground tradition that preserved the original spiritual source code, focusing on things like astronomy and wisdom, not for control but for genuine knowledge. They were playing the long game, just waiting for the corrupt operating system of Cain to inevitably crash.
Ultimately, this is the crime at the heart of it all. They took a technology that was meant to explore the universe and liberate the human spirit, and they turned it into a tool for inventory management. And this ancient template, taking spiritual tech and twisting it into a system of power, well, it didn't stop in Sumer. It became the business model for pretty much every empire to come.
Which leaves us with a final, and pretty provocative thought. This story suggests that the basic operating system of civilization itself might not be a program for progress, but a program of control, one that was founded on an ancient crime. So what you should take away from this isn't just a history lesson, it's a new lens. A lens that asks us to look at the systems we live in today and ask ourselves, whose code are we really running?